Welcome to episode 278 of the Center Ring Esports podcast presented by Alt. This is going to be the best episode ever, as we have a fat and juicy ValoRANT to get to. New map alert, everyone. We have a new map. This is not a drill. Riot is adding a new map to ValoRANT, so we will discuss that. Also, later in the show, we will be joined by Reynad, the owner and founder of Tempo Storm. So he'll join us talking about his newest game, the Bazaar, and a little bit about the org and the business side of esports as well. And of course, we will have e-news to get to wrap up the show. But first, let me tell you about the show's sponsor in Alt Esports. That's ULT Esports, and you can go to altesports.com to get the latest and greatest in esports apparel. They announced just yesterday, I believe it was, from this recording, they have signed their first professional gamer deal, which first off is a lie, because maybe they don't know that I was a semi-professional in Rainbow Six Vegas 1 and 2, but tough act to follow. So they signed Arcides of Atlanta FaZe, so he will be dropping his personalized merch there as well. I also have a personalized Arcides E-United jersey from Alt. Not a big deal. It is one of my favorite things that I own in my closet. I wear it while making love, Anuj.
You know what? Keep going.
So you can get your favorite thing while making love and not making love at altesports.com. Tell them the Center Ring sent you.
Hey, this is Jeff from the Overwatch team. You're here listening to the Center Ring.
Okay, so let's start.
Hello, everybody. Hello and welcome back to another edition of The Center Ring, aka TCR, aka your favorite esports podcast presented by Alt. This is episode 278, and it is coming to you live and or pre-recorded from an undisclosed location. The date, October 7th, 2020, 7 days into Spooktober, and the time is 9 p.m. Central. Go ahead and follow us on Twitter at The Center Ring if you're not doing so already. And join our Discord. Link is in the description as well. Be a part of the conversation. My name is Tim. I will be your captain for this journey into esports. And alongside me, as always, is my best friend, my brown friend. It's Anuj. What's up?
Dude, I do appreciate the, what does that look like? The millions we have in chat right now that are missing the Vice President debate to be here with us. I definitely appreciate that.
I mean, very similarities. You know, it's a tough one to decide if you want to watch the Vice President's debate or the Center Ring #1 esports podcast. I can confidently say, without a shadow of a doubt, Anuj, I am 30 years old. I have been able to vote now for 12 of those years. I have never spent a second of my life watching a vice president debate.
Yeah, I mean, I think everything's more intriguing right now than it has been in the past, right?
I'm watching for entertainment at this point.
Yeah.
But even then, I'll watch the highlights. I'll watch the clips. I'm not sitting down and watching no vice president. It's hard to get me to care about the actual presidential debate, let alone the vice president. But hey, people are into that. I hear it's important. And that's not to take light, that you should definitely go vote if you can. Just, you know, look up the Spark Notes if you'd like. Or you could sit there and watch an hour-and-a-half long debate and get absolutely nothing out of it. There's also that route you could go. Anuj, I have some
debate. They actually forgot to talk about topics.
The presidential debate said, hey, let's do a reenactment of what Twitch chat would sound like. They just went with it. Which, if that was the case, nailed it. They nailed it. But other than that, tough gig. Anuj, I have some personal development in my life.
Please tell me.
I bought an elliptical.
For you?
It's in the house, so I think I will use it. Here's the thing, and I've said this multiple times on the show, is at the beginning of the year, I was very committed to my diet and working out, and I lost weight, and I looked good. Even better than what I do now, believe it or not. But then COVID happened, and I told, like, my brain and body just went into hibernation mode. It said, hey, this is going to be a couple weeks. YOLO, right? Like, forget the diet. This is a pandemic. You don't do diets in pandemics. Well, that's when I thought it was going to be like 2 weeks long. 7 months later, I'm still on that.
Hasn't stopped.
Body hasn't really adjusted yet. So I'm still on that F the diet. And so I'm feeling it. So I bought an elliptical. And my goal is, I feel like I've had the wrong mindset when working out. I keep trying to go on a diet and work out so I can be healthy, look good, feel good. Now, I just want to do enough to where when I go to the doctor, they say I haven't gotten worse.
Like, there's no new fears.
Yeah, look, you are still overweight, trash dumpster of a human being. In fact, we don't know how your heart is still working with the amount of energy drinks you put in your body. But yeah,
it looks like your last visit.
You haven't gotten worse. And that's all I want.
I'm not in good shape by all means, but I've stayed pretty steady through like the pandemic. I think for a couple of reasons. Like I haven't been eating out nearly as much because at work,
yeah, that's
ate
all
out
I do.
At least 2 meals a day, right? I was getting my breakfast and my lunch out, and then sometimes there's happy hours or meetings where dinner ended up being part of it too. So I've been cutting that out, but now I go grocery shopping sometimes on my own, which is very dangerous. Like I come
very
home
dangerous.
with Welch's fruit snacks, drumsticks somehow got thrown in there, like chicken nuggets, like just oven nuggets that you throw in there, like all these little things somehow get thrown into the pile sometimes.
Here's my issue, okay? And I know some people might be like, well, this is an excuse. It's not an excuse, it's fact. If you are married, you will know. I was in much better shape and ate way better before I met my wife. Because the issue is she does work out. So she'll like go and run and walk like 5 miles and do all this yoga crap. So she's got like more room to give. Me, my diet was precisely picked out for a human being that does minimum to no physical activity. But it got me thin and I stayed thin. Well, then you throw in a woman who has no reservations of going to get food because she's like, hey, I work out. I can go have this French fry, right? Well, that French fry on her is gone later than the day. For me, that French fry is there possibly forever.
It's never going anywhere.
It's just not doing
I
much.
never ordered desserts until I met Kelly at a restaurant.
Yeah.
Like ever. Never. I never ordered
ice
desserts
cream.
for
I'm
myself.
not an ice cream guy. You know who is? My wife. For the first 3 bites. And then she's like, do you want it? I'm like, well, I just spent like $8 on this ice cream cone. So yeah, I guess I'll finish it.
Yeah, or like with Kelly, she's like, let's go get some ice cream. So we'll go to like Brahms or DQ or something over here. She gets like a little cone, right?
Yeah.
Vanilla ice cream, normal cone. I'm like, I'll get a sundae.
Yeah, give me an extra scoop.
Double scoop sundae. Throw a little extra hot fudge on there. It's like it's not the best way to do things, but I feel good afterwards, Tim. I'm not gonna lie.
Hey, I don't blame you. So the development is though, if you watch us on YouTube or Twitch, just know this handsome looking devil is just gonna get better.
You should do an elliptical stream.
Maybe. Maybe. If maybe. I don't know if anyone wants to see that, but maybe. All right, let's get into the show though, because we got Reynad later in the show. If you're watching live, he won't be later in the show. But if you're listening on the podcast or watching on YouTube later, he will be through the magic of editing. It was pre-recorded. It's on the lengthier side of ones, but it's a good one. So we're going to throw it in there, post-editing and everything there for you. For live, though, let's get into some ValoRANT, Anuj, because Riot gave us a little teasers followed by some big leaks for Act 3 coming out. Now, the way they do this, for those who are like, well, who cares about Act 3, right? This isn't esports. No. Because the way Riot has done this now, and I've learned the pattern after 2 seasons going into a third, that's when they drop their content. So if you're ever like, man, when's a new map going to come out? It's always just wait till the next act. When's a new character? Wait till the next act. You won't get that mid-act drop. It's coming with the new season. So now we do have that. We finally, after 2 acts, what feels like an eternity, we have a map. We have the 5th official ValoRANT map called Icebox.
One thing I want to touch on before we talk about Icebox is I do like this act type. I know when to expect a big update.
Yeah.
I'm not constantly hounding somebody on Twitter wondering like, come on,
What's
why won't they
happening?
release this? Or like I know, like, hey, the act is coming to an end. Content is about to come out. And I think that's a pretty cool way to keep people engaged. And man, I'll tell you, Tim, I love Riot's freaking like notes that they put out. So detailed. It gives me all the information I need. And it gets me like pumped, right? It's not like the random tweet of, hey, we have an update, go to our website, check it out. Like they promote it really well each week with these updates. And including this one, obviously, was really exciting to see. You're right. New map, about damn time, right? Like it felt like a long time. We had Ascent was the last map added, and that came in Act 1. And it's been a good map, right? Like I don't think people hate the map. I think there's some things that need to be fixed, like the hallway scenario with the Odin or Ares, being able to spam that wall so easily. Maybe some of those things could be tweaked a little bit, but overall, plays like a good map. Not many complaints. I think the biggest complaint for people was just the lack of maps, right? You kind of run across a night of playing, you get in a few hours, and you've repeated maps multiple times, 2-3 times, if not more. So,
and my heart can only take so much split, like 2 max, but nothing will ruin your night of gaming. It's like Anuj texts me, he's like, bud, let's play. I'm like, all right. I've, bet kids asleep, wife is cool, I'm gonna go play some games with my boys. Boom, first map is split, and you're like,
especially if you only got one to play.
Like if you only got one time, sucks.
Nothing like running into a split towards the end of the night to call it a night, right? Especially if you come out with the loss, you're usually just frustrated on that map. So having another map is great. I think the map looks really cool. If you've seen the teaser video, it looks like Sub-Zero from Counter-Strike, the FM Pwn map that's kind of in the workshop there. Really cool aesthetic to the map though, and look, I'm just excited for another map in the rotation. Like it's gonna keep me coming back for more, and that's really what it's intended to do. So having another map, giving you 5, gives a little bit more variety. It's gonna start to like loosen up that randomness of different maps that you're seeing, and I'm definitely stoked to play it.
Cosmetically, you're right. It looks awesome. From what we've seen quickly in like the reveal trailer for it, it does look like it's a tad different than your normal, just at least from the start, right? It looks like they almost spawned on like a platform and then you go down the ramp and things like that. It's a tad different just from that appeal of it.
There's zip lines across the map, so that's going to be a new change, right? So on Bind, you have the teleporters. On Haven, you have the 3 bomb sites. Split, you have the ropes, so each map is kind of introducing a new aspect to the game other than just, hey, it's a new map,
Yeah.
right? So I think having zip lines is a cool little way to get across the map. It kind of fits into the theme of everything else that they've done for some of these ability to quick rotate or navigate your way maybe through a map that doesn't have traditional lanes. There seems to be like an indoor outdoor type situation where you're out on like a ship deck with all these containers, and then you're inside the ship in like a cabin and crew type
So
scenario.
let me bring up this then, because that's a good segue then into what I'm my concern is, and I can say this is a too soon review on Icebox. Those shipping containers make it seem like there's a lot of places to check, right? Like there's a lot of corners to check on those shipping containers. I'm worried about that, but again, literally I'm seeing it from an aerial point of view. So I have no idea what the line of sights are going to look like on the map or anything. My concern is much like my issues with Split, where you have choke points, and then once you go through that choke point, if you're the attacking team, there's about 5 different areas that you need to look at very quickly, and God forbid you choose the wrong order to look at them, because then that person's going to peek out and get you. Like in Split, going into mid on the attacking side, it's like, you got to check behind the little boxes, you got to check ropes, and then you got to check what I would call like the main entrance, right? Connector. And then it's like, even if you go into B, it's like, okay, they could be right to my left on those boxes. They could be back of sight. They could be heaven. They could be behind pillar on the left or right, or they could also be close right in that little nook. It's like, there's a lot of places when you can only get in through one choke point, and that is worrisome just with how they've done their maps. But like I said, it's a 5th map. I'm going to at least like it for a little bit.
Yeah, and that's kind of the key thing, right? Is it's something new, so you're going to enjoy it. But I do agree,
Yeah.
the overall map design so far, map designs in general, have been a little disappointing.
Yeah.
I feel.
Well,
Not
the bar was
not
set
because of a
so
lack
high.
of. Yeah, you're bringing in one of the top map creators from Counter-Strike, so the bar is going to naturally be set high, and then expectations were there because they promoted Sal so heavily.
Yeah.
Right, like he was in all their little intro videos, and they made it very clear that, hey, we got our guy working on the maps. But the maps have been a little disappointing to me, and you're right, it's probably because of those just seemingly endless narrow choke points that you have to get through. At the same time, I do feel like where this differs from Counter-Strike is with the addition of agents over time, these maps will start to play different, because you'll have
100.
agents that
Yeah.
come in with different abilities that change the way you have to play, which means maybe these maps get better, maybe some of them get worse, but at least they're going to be consistently feeling different over
Yeah.
time. Now it's going to take some time because agents don't come out all that often. I think we're supposed to get like 4 or so a year. But I think that's important to know, right? Like the maps may play different a year from now than they play today, which that's kind of refreshing to think about, right? Especially coming from some of the games that we've come from, like maps to map, you played it 1,000 times, but they're good maps, right?
Yeah.
So at least these maps that we maybe don't consider so good right now have a chance to get better. We're not necessarily stuck with only this iteration of it. But I think that's the biggest news coming out from this new season that we have, this new act that we have coming up, is the addition of the new map. I think the next biggest thing, Tim, is the addition of the new character. So we are going to have a new agent. They've teased it, but leaks have come out to give us some more insight and detail into the abilities and really what this character does. But Tim, you want to introduce her?
Yeah, so we have another character called Sky. Do you know, have they said if she's going to be like what class she technically falls under? I haven't been able to see it. Maybe it's in the leaks. Either way, she looks like she would be a, what's it called?
Should be like a
entry fragger
type
of thing, an initiator. Just with her ability. So she comes with her kit. You're going to get an AoE healing ability. Key here, though, is it does not heal self, right? So it heals the team, but it will not heal you. Okay, and I think the way I've seen on the leaks is that there's only like a certain pool of health. So if I had to guess, the more players in that ring, the less health that's going to get spread out. I'm not 100% sure, but just looking at the leaks, that's what it kind of feels like. You're going to have...
That one's a little odd, right? Like, because usually you're not like grouped up in
Yeah.
that way in this game. Especially think of a map like Haven where there's 3 bomb sites and literally everybody's kind of watching one spot. So that'll be interesting to see how it gets its usage. Like, where will you'll have to find a way to group up to take advantage of that, especially since it's not a self heal.
Also, the first time we see a healing ability for teammates other than with Sage.
Yeah.
So it's the first time they're introducing that again. Now they've had self-healing abilities, which is a tad different. I'm curious to see how the public perceives this, right? Because a lot of people didn't like Sage just from the get-go, right? Like I remember when they revealed Sage, people are like, we're Overwatch now, fam. People, true FPS players, do not like the healing aspect, right? They want to have their gunfight and they want to compete that way. They don't want you to back off and heal and things like that. I guess it's a to be decided type of ability. We'll see if it's OP. Sage's healing ability, I feel like doesn't feel like that overpowered now. It's there. You could definitely have it in the back of your mind when you're like, okay, she's healing or she's healing them or something like that, but it's not like a game changer.
Yeah, and like I don't think this is going to be a game changer either. Like, because it's not a self heal.
Right.
That really takes away a lot of the overpower, because you have to adjust your positioning to go help a teammate out. So
if it's a one-on-one, it's a useless ability.
Yeah,
it does nothing.
Yeah, I mean that's a huge thing too, right? If you're by yourself, it's not like you're going to have an opportunity to do it. If you're solo holding a site, you might not be using it throughout the round. So from first looks of it, it doesn't feel OP. And when you talk about heals in the game, like they've introduced so many different little ways to do it that I don't feel like it's unfair. I thought it was unfair initially when it felt like it was just Sage who really had an OP heal, because you could go from 1 to 100 on her initial heal before it got nerfed. But now it's Sage and Reyna and Phoenix. Like there's a lot of different ways to heal, and this is a little unique because like you said, it's not a self heal. So
right.
I'm I don't feel like that's a big concern.
I think the general theme of this character is that she's going to be more of like a druid, if you think of her that way. So one of her abilities is the wolf drone, which essentially lets you take control of what looks like a wolf spirit. Now this lets you take control of it for X amount of time. It says here, then you can lunge at them. So if you lunge at an enemy, it will concuss them and then do damage on direct hit. So it's kind of a double whammy. Now, the one thing it doesn't include in the leak, the leak of it, is if the enemy team can shoot that drone, if you will. I have to imagine you're going to be able to shoot it and get rid of it.
I think I saw something on one of the other leaks that was saying it is going to be a shootable.
I was going to say, because that seems really ridiculous.
And another thing that makes it interesting is how far can you leap?
Yeah.
Right? Like, how far is that leaping ability? Because if you think of somebody like Reyes and her rocket, like that's a huge explosion also, but that rocket can be shot across the map if you want to, right?
Right.
So I'm going to assume there is some sort of like large leap ability involved here to make this really worthwhile. If it's like some short kind of just skip ahead and it's shootable, it doesn't seem like it would be a very strong ability in that way.
Right. The other one is she can send out a bird that will follow your the other thing with the wolf drone, though, that's huge, I think, and this is where I think it's a very good balancing act with this one, because you're thinking, oh god, it's another drone ability that can cuss and do damage. Okay. It also, though, I think the more value you're going to get out of that is the information part. The fact that you can actually see what... It's not like Reyes' Roomba, where you can put it there, but you're not getting vision. Unless someone shoots it or it finds someone could be sitting behind a box and know it's there, right? But you're not getting that information. With the wolf, you are seeing it. So it's going to be a little harder just to avoid it in that sense. However, it does leave the player vulnerable while using it. So I think that's a huge, huge thing to point out there. Another ability that she has is sending out a bird that can flash enemies. Kind of looks like it does a little bit of control wherever your crosshair's pointing.
It follows your crosshair.
Yeah.
So that's kind of cool, right? Especially if you have to get, like, there's elevated differences, like
Right.
elevation on these maps, right? So if you can fly the bird into a heaven or a hookah or something, like, that could be pretty cool. Also, again, I think that'll also be used a lot of time for information.
Yeah.
You know, it might not even necessarily be the flash that's the strong part of it. If you can send your bird around corners and kind of get some sort of grasp if someone's there. So I think that's a pretty neat looking flash. We'll have to see how fast it is and things like that to truly determine if it's good.
Yeah, so you'll have that. And then another where it's the seeker ability. So you release 3 seekers that will chase down enemies near sight them. You know, it's another, again, her kit, I think, is a lot about information, right? I think she's going to be more like almost like a Breach. I think if her and Breach are paired together, I think you're looking at a pretty good team that has entry ability, at least information ability.
A lot of flashes on that team.
The only downside to her, apart from the wolf, is you can't do anything unless you have line of sight to get it there, right?
Yeah.
So like her flashes, you're going to have line of sight to get out the door that you want to flash to or out of. The seeker ability, I don't know what the range on that's going to be. That could be a ridiculous ability to be decided, but I do think she is going to have a lot of breaching potential, right? She's going to be a good entry frag potential there.
And another character that also doesn't have smokes, right? It's not like just smokes and flashes. It's kind of one or the other. Right now, I think Omen's one of the few characters in the game that has both, right? And you can see that he's a pretty strong character, I feel, in the game. You see him used a lot on the comm side. But
yeah,
this character will get mixed and matched with different combinations, right? Because you got to have generally some sort of smoking ability. So maybe you pair, you know, taking out a Phoenix or taking out a Breach and using her in place of that in some scenarios too. So
I will say too,
exciting stuff
with a new character that to me looks like a useful kit. This, you know, her abilities don't, I can think of a situation where you could have all of her abilities be useful. You got to think though, it's just, again, and this is the nature of the beast when you have a game that you release agents or characters in, is it also just pushes those more useless ones just further and further and further down. No matter how many updates and balancing acts they try to do with Viper, then I see a release like Sky, and I'm like, okay, why would you pick Viper over this new character? And you really wouldn't.
You know, part of that is gives them the ability to maybe do some crazy things in terms of revamping some of those characters as they go, right? Finding a way to make them stronger. And you're kind of seeing that. They've obviously made changes to Viper recently to try to make her more worthy of being picked. I don't know if we'll necessarily see that yet, but they're trying, right? And so I think anytime you have a game with abilities, you're going to see a lot of balancing.
Yeah.
What's crucial is if it's done right? You've seen how some of the flaws in Overwatch kind of ruin the perception of the game. So it's a really fine line of let's make them stronger, but a little bit at a time, and kind of figure out where they fit in. But yeah, I mean, overall, I think just having character options is big. Like, and there's lore tied to them, so people get more invested in their character in that sense. So I'm excited to see both of these come out in the same act personally.
Yeah.
Like having a new map and a new character in the same act, hopefully early on, is that, you know, that's the best part for me here.
Yeah, I would just, like I said, I'm excited for just another map. Just
quick way for them to get $10 from me. I'm going to tell you that I'm not leveling up another character. I'm just going to pay the buyout fee.
I was at the start. I told myself,
not going to worry about the contract on this one.
I told myself I was going to not buy characters, and now I'm like, no, you know what? $10 isn't bad.
Yeah, like I just want the damn character. The amount we play, I'm gonna have to spend several nights trying to get one unlocked.
Yeah. No. A few little other things though trickled in with the Act 3. They are adjusting the ranking system a little bit. Right now, you can rank or play with anyone from within 6 tiers, which is ridiculous, to now they're lowering it to 3, which seems a little bit more reasonable. Probably will make queue times a smidge longer, but at least you're not going to be a gold 3 playing with a bronze.
Yeah, and with queue times, they're also kind of fixing that in the higher ranks by you can only solo and duo queue past Immortal.
Yeah.
So you're not going to be able to full 5-man queue there, and I think that's a good change. Especially for the higher tiers, like you don't want to see 5 stacks just running through when you're playing with just one of your buddies, right?
Yeah.
Like,
Yep.
we run into it quite often, and it's frustrating when that happens. So
You can always tell too. You can always tell when you're playing against a pre-made because it's just like, oh, these guys seem.
the 3 tiers is kind of interesting. Going from the 6 to 3, there's not a lot of wiggle room there. If you're trying to play with friends, like you all better hope you're very close to each other in rank because 3
that's
tiers
the
is really
only
not...
downside. That's the only downside. Now I still stand by my rule to where if you're a 5 stack, you should be able to play. You just go with the higher SR, like for matchmaking purposes. So hopefully, I don't know if that's going to be the case, or if you're a 5 stack, then hey, you know what? You're diamonds and you want to play with your buddy who's a bronze, by all means do it, right? You're all agreeing to it. Obviously, you're in a party together. We're going to put you in a higher diamond rank, but fine, go for it.
Yeah, like 3 does seem small to me personally.
Where that falls,
you gotta stay tight with your friends.
I was gonna say that's the issue, right? Like if all of a sudden I want to play a weekend when you're not there, and all of a sudden I pop off or have a rough go at it, that could ruin, make or break if we're playing together the next time. So, who knows? Look, no matchmaking is perfect. Even in ValoRANT, I'll go to win 4 in a row, no rank up. I'll lose 1 and I rank down. So I don't, it is what it is. It is what it is. A few other things here to get to. Middle East and North African servers are being added. So all of our Middle Eastern and North African listeners, rejoice. You can now play ValoRANT without awful ping.
But it's pretty cool to see, though. I mean, it really is crazy how global it is in that sense.
Yeah. And that was always their marketing kick, right? Is they wanted to have that global impact where Counter-Strike was somewhat missing in certain areas. And last but not least, so bringing it back to the esports side, an org that I was under the impression it was going to be longer until we saw them really get into the ValoRANT scene, just given what they were saying. But I guess when the opportunity comes knocking, you answer. NRG is officially signed Som, Daps, and Chet as a coach, and potentially adding Ace.
Yeah, like that's, for Som and Daps, we kind of talked about this last week a little bit. I think Daps is a great addition to any ValoRANT roster in the sense of having an in-game leader in a new game is like super valuable, right?
Yeah.
And he doesn't have to necessarily pop off in this game the way he would have to in Counter-Strike to be effective, because in Counter-Strike he's playing like tier 1 best of the best, right? Like these are aimers probably a little bit closer to his level because of where they played competitively in CS. Like we kind of know that, right? So I think he'll be a little bit more of a playmaker in this game than maybe some people are used to seeing with him. But I think signing Som is huge. Som's a young talent. He's going to be, in a duelist type role. It gives Chet a lot of flexibility to have somebody that's just a raw aimer on the team. And if they add ACU, he's on their streaming roster right now. He was playing like Apex for a while there, and now been playing ValoRANT, quite a bit. That would be a good addition because Ace is like a talented player. Like he is, never really broke through too much on the CS side, although I had a couple of good runs there with E United and stuff. But talented Opper. He could probably play rifle too. I could see him on a character like Jet, and he could play that role well. So if they sign him, I think they have a pretty good core to start off with there.
Yeah, I mean, I think the roster is intriguing. It's intriguing. With all these ValoRANT rosters, I've had to do this, where you almost have to remind yourself that they're not playing Counter-Strike.
Yeah, like they're not playing against Navi and Simple.
Right.
They're not playing against Astralis and Device. Like, look at who their best competition is, right? We talk about Sentinels. We talk about TSM. This is just on the NA side. You know, I wouldn't see any reason why they couldn't find a couple other potential CS players to like fit around them, including maybe somebody like like I could see Tim from Gen G. Like we've kind of seen this recently where his interest seems to be declining just a little bit. Like I see he streams a lot of other stuff besides Counter-Strike. Like I wouldn't be surprised if we saw them snag somebody else. Like an organization that big has pull, has resources. Like they have the ability to like steal somebody away that you're maybe not expecting.
Yeah, so we'll see if there's any more announcements coming up here in the near future for NRG. But as I think Act 2 has only a couple days left, so get in it now if you have to get any more unlocks. I think I have like one more I really want to get to, so maybe we'll hop on later tonight to play. But hit us up in Discord if you see us. We do play ValoRANT. That's like our one go-to game, and we typically play like once every other night. Like we're on,
we get a game in. We're not playing a lot.
No.
We're generally getting like a game in, and on the weekends you could say, like if we run 3 in a row, that's a pretty good night for us. You know?
Yeah. So we're late night gaming, and we're getting one in, but we're getting one in. So hit us up in Discord if you're interested. We're around the high silver gold rank. That is only because of the lack of playing, not lack of knowledge, I promise you. Because let me tell you what, the game tried to derank us. It deranked us. We dominated. Like 3 games in a row, both of us, like over 20 kills a piece. Dominated.
With aces in the same game, we're like, okay, this is feeling really easy. We need to get this up a couple more.
That they try to put us down a rank, and it made the difference. So hit us up if you want to play. We're pretty much always down to play with whoever. All right, let's get over though to our guest here. Again, if you're watching live, catch out the podcast, check it out on YouTube later. But it is Reynad. So here is his interview. So our next guest here on the Centering Esports podcast is I'm a longtime fan. I'm a little intimidated. I won't lie to you guys. He is known for the King of Salt on Twitch. Long time ago, though. That I never said that, Reynad. That wasn't me. But I've read online. He is professional, I will say, card player. Hearthstone, Magic. I'm sure if you put any trading card in front of him, he'll probably master it. He is also the founder and CEO of Tempo Storm. Please welcome to the show, ladies and gentlemen, Reynad. How's it going today?
It's going great. Thanks for having me.
Do you like the nickname King of Salt?
I don't, but it's not because I don't like the saltiness tag. I just think there's more elegant ways to do it. Why not the Sultan? Or something. There's like a way to. I don't know. I had a lot of nicknames over the years. Whatever you want, man.
I like the Salt. Sultan of Salt. That's got a nice ring to it. Why don't you, Tempo merch guy, put that on a shirt. The Sultan of Salt. That's some merch idea for you. Well,
Tim
first,
was born in the salt mine, so he's used to being in there himself.
What can I say?
Kindred spirit.
Yeah, we just want to win, Reynad. That's it. That's all it is. We just want to win. First off, I wanted to say thank you for coming on the show. Like I said, I've been a big fan of yours all the way from early on in Hearthstone and just kind of your Twitch streaming and everything like that. So I wanted to have you on the show and kind of talk about your latest endeavors and things like that. I know one thing I wanted to get to real quick is just you're kind of a world traveler. So how's this year just been for you on a personal level? Well, world traveler compared to me. We live in Texas. We go to Oklahoma, and that's like world traveling for us. For you, though, with COVID and everything going on, how's that been for you as a org, as a personal? How's that been?
That's a great question. Definitely a change of pace. And I didn't realize how used to traveling often I got, just doing the whole esports grind for so many years. But it was kind of like there was always some event or some convention or some esports tournament that I kind of fell in the habit of going to every couple months. And now because of COVID this year, just not having that, it's definitely been personally a little bit stressful. I feel a little bit cooped up in the house all the time. It's a year where I just put a lot on my shoulders this year in terms of goals and just work that I have to do. So, yeah, I wish there was a bit more travel to break that up. We did manage to get out a little bit about a month ago. We're working on making a game right now, and our developers are out in Ukraine. So we actually flew out there recently, filmed some documentary footage for a film we're making, and then also just it's nice to work with them in person for the first time on the project. So, yeah, it's been good, but I wish we'd go back to the days of just traveling whenever you feel like it. Definitely miss my friends in Europe. That's what I'll say. Yeah.
Any positives looking back at the year so far that whether it's been time to reflect because of COVID's kind of slowed everything down a little bit, and any of that for you that's really been more of a positive rather than a lot of the negatives we've heard throughout the year?
Yeah. I mean, to be honest, it's just been comfortable. I'm super. I've just been doing the whole like stream lifestyle thing for so long that I don't know. This isn't too much of a change of pace, I guess, from the usual. Yeah, it's hard for me to point to a positive, but I'll say that could have been worse. We're lucky to be in this industry when that struck. I mean, imagine if I had spent my entire adult life in the restaurant industry or something, and then this hit. It's just. Yeah.
Yeah, owning a movie theater probably doesn't sound as appealing as owning an esports org right now.
So you mentioned you were overseas then for multiple reasons, but one to work on the game you guys are developing. For those who don't know, it's the Bazaar. I guess that's developed overseas? That's not in-house?
It is in-house, yeah. We just have a lot of the staff on it in Ukraine. But yeah, first-party product, Tempo Games. We built out an entire game studio division in the company, and yeah, let's see what happens when an esports team makes a game. Let's see what happens when a streamer makes a game in a genre that they think they understand. It's kind of crazy, man. I don't know. Game development is one of those things that I think almost everybody feels like they would be good at. It's a very definitely a hard thing once you get into the thick of it. But I don't know. It's been a cool journey.
I was gonna say that is the fact that everyone does this. You're playing Hearthstone, you're playing Counter-Strike, whatever, right? Something, you get a bad case of RNG and you're like, I could make a better game than this, right? I could make than this piece of crap in front of me. I could make a better game. You are doing that. Like, you put all your chips on the table. I think you're almost like, I'm sure other developers are, I don't want to say hoping you're going to fail, right? Everyone wants the game to work, but there might be someone in the gaming world that's like, who's this kid think he is? Just thinks he can make an esports org and then all of a sudden whip up a game that's going to be better than ours. So do you feel that pressure?
A little bit. I don't know. I'm just excited to take their players from them. That's how I think about it.
That's the attitude to have.
What pushed you to make a game? I mean, obviously that's a big step from going from like a traditional esports org of what we've seen to game development, to making a game studio. Like, what kind of drove that innovation?
Yeah, to be honest, I think it was kind of inevitable looking back on it. I've just always really been into game design. I thought that's what I would do as an adult, like for most of my life. I learned how to program when I was 13. I was making a lot of games as a teenager. My first job was teaching game programming, but it was like an easy language. I was a Scratch. I was teaching it to kids in a Minneapolis library. But yeah, like I'll give you the business reason and then like the personal reason. Basically, the business reason is there's all this. Basically, a few years ago, brands started getting comfortable putting money behind streamers for the first time. And before the Amazon acquisition of Twitch, that wasn't really the case. You know, like back when I was streaming full time, like 2014, 2015, brand deals were just starting to become like a real like revenue generator, right? So anyway, all these brands started coming into the space, and we noticed these influencer marketing companies kept coming to us and saying, hey, we want to use your streamers to promote this thing. Let's make something happen. And eventually we just started going around them to directly to the publishers, right? That were basically paying these influencer marketing companies. And I'm sorry for the long-winded answer.
No,
this is a long-form podcast. Feel free.
Perfect. Yeah. So basically, we noticed all this deal flow happening around getting streamers to promote some video game. Publishers realized it's a great way to get downloads. So we started going around these influencer marketing companies, going straight to the publisher ourselves, setting up these partnerships. And we tried promoting other people's games. This is a couple years ago we started doing this. Like, for example, I think we were the first esports team that maybe the only team to this day that did a campaign with Blizzard. We had like the Lich King takeover tempo for Knights of the Frozen Throne expansion and Hearthstone. That ended up being their best-selling one of all time. And we had a lot of other success with other publishers promoting games. So just like the business, we basically realized that the business we were sitting on is just a great distribution tool for game downloads. Every time we did a campaign with one of these game developers, we realized the campaign would just go great because when people decide what game they want to play these days, they just want to go to streamers. You know, they don't want to like read some review in an article or whatever. You might as well just go on Twitch and see gameplay live and see if it looks fun. So yeah, we just realized we had a good distribution tool, and I was just thinking, how do we cut out the middleman again? Well, you know, we need to own the game. We need to stop promoting somebody else's game if we really do have this good of a distribution tool, and we're starting to get more and more of these deals. So, you know, basically that, because we started promoting other people's games and we were doing it successfully, I realized I think we can market a game. Like I know we can because we had success in these campaigns. So I just did some rough math. What would it take to build one? You know, luckily Tempo was born out of strategy games, and that's a pretty inexpensive genre to develop compared to other types of games. And yeah, just did a bunch of research for a few years, and you know, the math and all the business stuff worked out. I mean, that's the business reason. The personal reason is just shorter. It's pretty much just, you know, I've spent tens of thousands of hours playing children's card games in my life. I have few other skill sets that can contribute to society, and I think it's debatable that one does. But I don't know. I think I'm qualified to make one. I think I know what the market's missing, and I think that if you're a streamer professionally for 8 years and all day, every day, you're just sitting there reading chat, like the guy in the fucking Matrix scene, you're just gonna absorb a lot of consumer feedback about that type of game. You know, when you sit there reading just, you know, Twitch chat for a decade and all of their thoughts about digital strategy games,
what can be better?
Yeah, you know exactly what their pain points are because they're very loud about them. But you know, you also see some smaller tactical things you can do well here and there. So I don't know. I just felt like we had the marketing. I wanted to do it, and I've wanted to do it my entire life. You know, to really just develop a good game product. And yeah, I don't know. I think now's the time. We've been developing it for about 2 years now. Actually, it's been funded for about 1 year. It's been going great. I don't know. We're on schedule. It looks good. Actually, this morning I got a new build of the basically the first time we put all of our art assets together into something presentable. You know, I guess you could call it a vertical slice. It's just been so cool seeing it come together. Honestly, I've just been very proud of the team working on it. And yeah, I don't know. I guess they're personal reasons, they're business reasons. They both lined up, and now we're making a game.
Does it let you appreciate other games that you've maybe bashed in the past now that you're on the other side of things?
No, they're all trash. A lot of the things that upset me the most about strategy games, I think, are still pretty inexcusable. I would double down on a lot of the opinions I had before starting the project. I do have an appreciation for just how hard of a product it is to build, though. I had no idea the level of communication skills that you need for a creative project of this scale. I didn't. It's a lot of moving pieces, but we just have great people on it. I made sure to spend most of my time and energy into getting the right staff onto the project, and they know what they're doing a lot better than I do when it comes to this kind of workflow. Like, they've made plenty of games before, I haven't. And yeah, I don't know. It's been an awesome process, honestly. Out of all the things I've done in my career, from like competing, streaming, casting, team ownership, whatever, this has been definitely one of my favorite projects to work on. I don't know.
So I want to ask a little bit more about the personal side then. So obviously, before you market the game, you got to have a good product, right? And so what about this game should excite the player base? Like, what are some of the pinpoint pains that you talk about that this game is going to alleviate for them?
Yeah, no, it's a great question. Look, to be honest, when I was pitching the game a couple of years ago, just when it was nothing more than an idea, the speech I would give people was all about solving the problems that games like Hearthstone have. It was things like, oh, net decking homogenizes the meta, and every game feels the same because everyone's playing the same 3 decks after 2 weeks after an expansion comes out. Or it was like talking about how Hearthstone's progression system, the collection of cards, kills their own player base over time because they don't let players trade cards between each other, so it's a closed economy. So every time they do a set rotation, every player has to make the choice of like spending $200 to buy new packs or just disenchanting like 75% of the value of their collection to get the new cards. So it basically, I used to give that kind of speech. Because our progression system is not a collection of cards, we're never going to kill our own player base over time, and because you build your strategy as you play the game after you start, you don't come to the table with a deck of cards that you pre-built. Because of that, we don't have that net decking issue, right? And when we started working on the game, it was going to be the world's first digital deck builder, and this really was a very innovative concept. Just since then, Slay the Spire came out after we started the very early development, and then auto chess blew up as a genre. And what the auto battlers did was a lot of what we were going for, where you can't like replicate a strategy, you have to make it on the fly. It's all about that risk assessment and resource management. And those games are great. I love all of them. TFT, Battlegrounds, Auto Chess itself, Underlords. I mean, they're all good games. And we basically realized that right now is kind of the bleeding edge of strategy game PvP. These games have their own issues. They're just inherently unwatchable on Twitch, and none of them are good enough as just a game on its own. None of them have mainstream enough appeal that they've actually consolidated the strategy game player base on Twitch. So basically, right now what we're doing is we want to make strategy games watchable again. And the game, I mean, to be honest, I haven't really pitched it to people. We've just kind of been in the weeds working on it all year. But I'll tell you about it. What's exciting to me about it. The game's an adventure strategy game. It's just like a blend of my two favorite genres in gaming. It's not something I've seen done before. I don't know whether to call it like a strategy adventure game or like a PvP roguelike even. It might be another way to interpret it. There's basically two things you do in the game. First of all, the game's called the Bazaar. It's an intergalactic marketplace. There's all these aliens and creatures coming together to trade and barter. And it's a really cool planet full of all these colorful creatures and cool things. So you pick a hero, right? It's like a class-based game, like League of Legends. You can pick whatever hero you want to play. And then you queue into an opponent and you start walking through the Bazaar. That's the first thing you do. You explore. You run into different merchants. You can choose which ones to go to. After you're at a merchant, they lay their wares out in front of you. You decide which ones you want to buy. You have the stuff that you've already bought, the stuff that you're carrying on you. You can upgrade it, modify it. You're basically building up. That's a big part of the game. You're exploring, getting stronger. The second part of the game is the output. It's the way that we compare the way players bought. It's the way that we decide who is better at exploring the Bazaar. And that part's going to be combat. And it's not going to be very input heavy. We don't want a bunch of activated abilities and clicking every turn. It's not necessarily going to be full auto battler either, but we're going for that nice balance of giving the player enough control that they can basically make the fight play out differently every time, have some surprises, have some bluffing, elements like that. But the fight is still low input, easy. The fun part of the game is just choosing what way you want to get stronger. Oh, that merchant looks cool. What does he have? Oh, I listened to the voice line. Oh, he says this other merchant might have something cool next day. So I'm going to go check that merchant out on the next turn. And yeah, you build up, you get stronger, you explore.
So are these merchants like on a daily reset type thing where they will have continuously like different items for you to pick and choose from? Or, once a meta set of like, hey, everyone go to this merchant, like that's going to be the go-to merchant that you need to go to every time?
So right now it's actually it's very much like just pure choice based. So you can imagine like a series of discover screens. Is kind of the best way to describe it. And each of the things you're discovering isn't a card; it's a merchant, right? And you'll have like 4 merchants. But the game could have dozens of merchants, right? Each class has its own unique merchants. The merchants that you go to, sometimes they have stuff that only that merchant sells. So yeah, really, it's about going into the bazaar. You see like hundreds of characters. You basically decide which ones do I want to talk to, which ones are more likely to have stuff that I want. Do I want to? Oh, like I'm getting my ass kicked. I should go to the healing merchant and get a bandage, or I'm ahead. I want to snowball my lead. Let's go to the weapon merchant, get stronger. We're just trying to give the player like a good degree of control over where they want to go in a strategy game, and just want to make sure that the player's decisions, not their reaction time, is what determines the winner. Like, we really are targeting strategy game players on Twitch specifically.
So I'll have a question here then. One of my sticking points with trading card games, and it's really ever since they've moved to the computer side, I feel like you don't get as much RNG abilities with physical card games. It's, you have the RNG of drawing the deck, but I play Yu-Gi-Oh!, so I believe in the heart of the cards anyway, so I don't even have to worry about RNG. From there, though, with Hearthstone, this is what gets me with Hearthstone, so not only do I have to have RNG to get the right card, then I get the right card. That card has an RNG ability on there where, hey, you're going to have this ability, and it could either heal you for 20 or instantly kill you. Okay, and now you play it, and now maybe in that healing ability, there's a 10% chance that it might also hit this monster. And it ends up feeling more of luck than actual, like, I had no skill into this because there was 5 RNG sequences that followed this one card that I drew. My question to you, just to follow up, put my mind at ease, because I've been following the Bazaar since early development. Doesn't seem like there's as much. I mean, obviously, there's always going to be some RNG when it comes to a type of strategy card game base. There's got to be some level of it. But just talk me off the ledge from that type of RNG.
I shouldn't talk you off the ledge. If that's the kind of RNG you find in our game, you should jump. It's like the reality is when people talk about RNG, they always talk about like more or less of it. They talk about it like quantity, like it's some sort of fungible thing that you can have more or less of. Our philosophy on RNG is that just like most things in life, there's good ways and there's shitty ways of doing it. And the way that we define the good way of doing RNG, our philosophy on it, pretty much just boils down to 2 rules. When the RNG happens, all of the outcomes of that die roll should be roughly equal power level in a vacuum. So something like Crackle in Hearthstone does 3 to 6 damage at random. We want to make sure we don't design cards like that because it's always better to roll a 6 than a 3, which is bad. A better way of doing RNG, just to continue using Hearthstone as an example, is spare parts in that game. Every time you get a spare part, it makes the game play out differently, but each of the spare parts in a vacuum is roughly the same power level. So that's rule number 1, is just make sure the outcomes are equal. Right. No implosion type of cards where there's strictly better or worse die roll outcomes. The second rule is paying attention to when the player gets to make their input in relation to the RNG. What I mean by that is whenever your player is going to make the decision on doing something in the game, the RNG is good RNG if it happened before the player makes their choice. If the RNG happens after the player made their choice, it's bad RNG. So I'll use Crackle again as an example. It's a spell in Hearthstone, does 3 to 6 damage at random. You got to point it at something because you need to decide what's getting shot. So when the player points, that's when the player has their choice. That's when they have agency. So you can't have it so the player chooses, then the die roll happens. That's when they tilt off the face of the earth, and it's an objectively bad way of
I've
doing
been
it.
there. I've been there.
But if you roll the die first, again, I'll just use the spare part example again. The spare part goes in my hand, and then I decide when to opt into playing it. And you still get all the strengths of RNG. You still get a game that plays differently every time, and it just increases the replay value and the tension and the experience. But you're just not going to tilt your players off the face of the earth, I think, if you just do RNG in a better way, which is kind of our goal with the Bazaar.
Maybe there is. Blink twice if there is a release date for early access.
Not yet, but look, here's something about early access. I'm thinking about early access, like whatever the release date is, I'll subtract some number of weeks.
Okay.
And I do have an idea of what the release date is. I have an idea for the release month, at least, so.
Okay. All right. We're getting there. We're getting there. Like I said, I've been following it from early on, so I'm excited to give it a shot. Like I said, I personally like trading card games. I'm still more of a physical guy, like I said, just because with PC, it just seems like the RNGs, this is just never on my side. But how about you? I know your background is all in trading cards. Started out with Magic and everything there. Do you play any physical trading card games?
I've actually been playing a decent amount of Magic lately. Actually, all the designers on the Bazaar play a good amount of Magic, so we've been cubing a lot. It's probably my favorite game of all time. I have so many hours in that game. I actually played a tournament a couple weeks ago too for the first time in a year or two. That was fun. But yeah, like there's strengths and weaknesses to whether you put your card game like digitally or in paper. Both ways have their pros and cons. Magic is a great social game. It's honestly one of the biggest strengths of it. But as soon as you take that gameplay and you put it on a digital medium and people are playing from their living room halfway across the country from one another, you lose that social experience. And the gameplay itself doesn't carry like the Magic video game into being the most fun strategy game ever, in my opinion. Even though it is my favorite strategy game. I guess what I'm saying is, for games like Magic, going to a digital medium hurts them a lot because they lose a lot of what makes the game so great in paper, just being able to go to a local gaming store with a group of friends and socialize and banter. But when you do go digital, you get a lot of benefits too. It's just some trade-offs. It's way more scalable. You're going to get access to just way more potential users. And players can play your game much more quickly, as in the volume of games getting played the second you put your card game on a computer, it just spikes. So your game gets solved faster. This kind of exacerbates the whole net decking problem. So I don't know. For us, we're definitely going digital, and we're just focusing on making the game as watchable as it can possibly be, which is definitely a challenge for strategy games, but something we think we can do.
So let me give you a scenario here. It is the finals of the Bazaar International World Championship. I'm playing for Tempo Storm. You signed me. You said, my God, you're a 30-year-old who still plays Yu-Gi-Oh! And collects Pokemon cards. I want that on the org. So you signed me. I say, can't afford me, but let's do it. I'm in the finals. I lose because of some unbalanced bullshit card. How fast do you go in and patch that card out of the game because it just lost us the trophy?
I lost you the trophy. All right, I would have.
Well,
been on
you're
the
developer. See, so you're the developer and the boss.
Yeah, that's a good question, man. It's a good question. Honestly, I can't wait to be streaming the game, and I'll just lose to some bullshit, and I'll just nerf it live then and there. That'll be just what an empowering feeling,
That would live up to the nickname for sure.
Yeah.
Is that has that been discussed behind closed doors? As far as I know, you're the first esports org to make their own game. Has there been any discuss of how you're going to combat the conflict of interest discussion? Because it's going to get thrown out there. Like some salty Twitch chat is going to say something about you being the developer and competing.
Oh, that's what you mean. No, I'm not actually going to compete in tournaments. No, I was just kidding.
But is Tempo
what
Storm
about
going
like
to?
Tempo in general?
Tempo in general, maybe. I mean, look, I don't think it's uncommon to see a big publisher like Riot or Activision or Ubisoft have like an influencer program, right, where they partner with streamers and sponsor them to some degree. It's not that different from an esports team relationship. It's possible we don't want to sign like pro Bazaar players, depending on like philosophically where we end up on that. But no, like, look, my esports philosophy is not. I don't look at it from the perspective of a team. I look at it from the perspective of a publisher. So when we think about like how are we gonna handle esports within our game, we think about which grassroots initiatives can we support to really get like organic grassroots bottom up growth, get more people playing and competing. What can I do to get high school programs to adopt this to be their high school strategy game? What can I do what can I do pretty much the opposite of Overwatch League to organically build something bottom up without shortcuts, right? I think the whole top down build it and they will come model where you throw a bunch of money at a new game and claim that it's the next big esport is just absolutely ridiculous. I don't think there's any shortcuts to building a sport. I think you just need time, you need storylines to develop, and you as the publisher have to support it in a way that actually grows the scene long term and doesn't just like treat it like a marketing stunt in the short term. If that sort of makes sense. So.
Yeah, it's refreshing to hear that because you're right. A lot of these games that have come out recently, not counting card games, they focus on how to be a big esport before they focus on how to be a good game. And they throw a lot of money into marketing, get the right people, trying to play it, and ultimately that tends to backfire. It feels most of the time.
Yeah, it's just unrealistic expectations. Like no esport was made overnight. You gotta just have a game that's good enough to compete at a high level for years, and yeah, just put some support behind the community. Don't try to gatekeep esports the way so many publishers do, and yeah, it grows. It always does.
Well, I know we have a little bit more time here with you. Anuj, did you want to turn the page and ask him a little bit more esportsy questions?
I got a couple of esports questions I want to throw at you before we let you go. We obviously wanted to make the focus on this about the upcoming game, but obviously your background and a lot of the esports you've been involved with touch us, directly in terms of what we enjoy speaking about. One of them in particular is Counter-Strike. Obviously, y'all had a competitive Brazilian roster there for quite some time. Became really well known in the North American and South American regions, and so looking at the state of Counter-Strike currently, I'm really intrigued to hear your answer on this. But looking at the current state of Counter-Strike, the way the money is gone, the way the leagues are kind of shaping out with Flashpoint and ESL, if you kind of still keep up with that and what's going on, do you feel like you exited at the right time in terms of a game like Counter-Strike?
Do I feel like we exited at the right time?
Well, because obviously it's become a esport that's kind of known to lose money for a lot of these organizations, but it's a lot of appeal to the fan base, right? A lot of people run it at losses in order to have a competitive CS team. Y'all were in front of that wave a little bit, though.
Yeah. I mean, look, I'll just tell you my general thoughts on Counter-Strike. So for me personally, it's one of my absolute favorite esports. Out of all the scenes that I followed, it was probably when I was actively doing like all the recruiting and scouting and like management stuff in the company, CSGO was a game that I probably spent more time following that game than any other esport. I love that game. I think it's one of the only true esports that really has sports fan-like behavior, regional rivalries, things like just real storylines, a real community. I'm not worried about ValoRANT coming in and taking their players or anything like that. So, I think the esport of Counter-Strike has a lot of strengths. I mean, that being said, like, if you're looking at it from the lens of like what was the right time to get in or out, it has less to do with Counter-Strike and more to do with the investment market, which sounds kind of weird, but basically in 2015, a couple of venture-backed esports orgs came into the space for the first time. And esports is a great narrative to like an institutional investor. and they just raised a pile of money, used that to raise more money and more money and more money, and at no point were they able to like justify their valuation, but it just created this like feedback loop of raising.
Yeah.
Sorry, I just want to make sure I address your question directly. Could you repeat it? I just want to make sure.
Yeah, I just wanted to get your take on like, when you exited the scene.
Right, yeah.
Looking at kind of how it shuffled, do you think that was the right time?
Yeah. So for us, I do think it was the right time. What happened after that point is, like I said, all these venture-backed teams started entering the space, and the salary market went up about 20-fold in the course of like 18 months, which is like, if you're building a story to raise money, then yeah, you can sign some Counter-Strike players at a massive loss and get your headline and try to build some short-term hype. But if you're trying to build a business, it's just like it became grossly irresponsible to invest in almost any game that venture-backed orgs started pumping that kind of money into. I think it's gotten a little more reasonable nowadays, but yeah, I don't know. I wish that everybody in the industry was focused more on like building esports to be sustainable and just like organically growing the scene. You know what I mean?
Right now, it has become a money dump, right? Look at the franchising leagues, for example. Like, those are mainly venture-backed orgs now that are being involved, dropping 20-25 million to buy a spot.
Yeah, I mean, it's both on the team side and the player side. A lot of people are kind of prioritizing just what's best for me short term right now. And for the teams, that usually means building some sort of narrative to go and raise money. And for the players, that just means who's writing the biggest check right now, And I think it's just growing pains, We'll grow out of it. And, there's a lot of money to be made in the space. And I think, a lot of it, especially on the brand campaign side of things. But yeah,
I want to follow up on something that you kind of mentioned. You said you weren't too worried about Valorant coming into CS's space or taking the player base. What makes you kind of feel that way, just out of curiosity? Like, why do you feel like Valorant's not a threat, or there's enough differences to keep them separated, or what makes you feel like Valorant shouldn't be considered a big threat to CS long term?
So I think Valorant's an excellent game. I think Riot this year and last really came out to the world and just proved they're one of the best game developers in the world, definitely in North America. I mean, the execution is just so good on all the products they released. With Valorant, it has less to do with Valorant. It has more to do with CSGO. CSGO just didn't really have big underlying issues. The game design is honestly just some of the best game design ever. That's why the format's worked so well for 20 plus years or however long it's been at this point. It's CSGO was like, they weren't negligent, they kept improving their product. It's a good product. It's a great game. It has that history. It has the players already. Sure, I could jump to a game that might be some percent better, but it's not going to be twice as good. It's not going to be 3 times as good as CSGO, And are you going to abandon your existing friends list, habits, things like that for a new IP in a game that ultimately is very similar? I don't know. Some people will, for sure. I just don't think it's like, before Valorant came out, a lot of people thought it would just like take all of Counter-Strike's players.
Yeah.
I'm basically saying both games will be large esports moving forward. Yeah.
No, that's fair enough. Want to ask you about something else here that we've seen, kind of Counter-Strike related, or at least where the story would come from. Recently, Cloud9 had a new general manager, Henry G. He's obviously a big caster if you're familiar with him. He has kind of started a new trend, and that is, as he signs a player, he releases their contract or salary information along with the signing. So just like you would see in an NFL or a pro sports player, 3 years, 400,000. This is this bonus. This is the salary. This is the buyout. Kind of showing you a package deal. Being the owner of a team, what do you think about that approach? Not to say that his approach is right or wrong. Just like, do you like the thought of that possibly becoming a a new thing in esports? Like, do you kind of like that idea or not like that idea?
Look, to be honest, I'm pretty neutral on it. I do want to push back on the notion that that's a new idea. I mean, teams have been doing that in esports for a while. I mean, even in LCS, or it might have been Challenger. I think it might have been Challenger, but I remember like Ember or some startup team did the same thing like 4 years ago or 5 years, like a long time ago. And, you know, I mean,
I guess maybe at
R9
this
could have
level
done-
though, right? Like in terms of like the money that we're talking about that's being used here with a couple of these guys making
yeah,
30, 40K a month type thing.
yeah, it's higher than it was, but it's not like, yeah, I don't know. Look, I think the practice has some benefits. You know, I'm not opposed to doing it. It's a hard thing for me to give feedback on. Like,
Yeah.
honestly, I yeah, more power to them. I'm just in general, I'm just happy to see things professionalized more. You know, more support staff for players, just people having their shit together more than, you know, like 8 years ago, this entire industry was run by teenagers.
The Wild West 8 years ago.
Yeah.
Well,
And yeah.
Reynad, the saltine of salt, I want to thank you for the saltine. That's a cracker. You're the sultan of salt. Maybe you're
Thanks.
a saltine salt cracker. I don't know. One of the two. It could be either one. All right. Well, thank you again, Reynad, for coming on the show. For all of our listeners, you can check out playthebazaar.com. You can pre-order it, which will get you into early access, which will be eventually a couple
TBD.
weeks and or months before game release, as we are told. So you go there, sign up for it. Like I said, I'm super excited for the game. I've been following it, Reynad. So I want to thank you again for coming on the show and wish you guys nothing but the best going forward with the team, with the org, and with the game. You have a busy future ahead of you.
Hey, thanks a lot, man. Thanks for having me. And I don't know, maybe I don't know.
We'll chat soon. We'll chat soon.
We'll chat soon.
Maybe after release, we'll get a chance to catch up and see how things are going.
For sure, man. Yeah, I'll send you guys a build when I have one in a few months once we're ready to.
Yeah, please do. Like I said, I would love to test it out.
Awesome.
Wish you all the best, dude. Appreciate you. Thank you.
All right.
Done and done.
All right. So there again, thank you so much to Tempo Storm and Reynad for coming on the show and just kind of shooting the shit about the Bazaar. Like I said, I have been following the game since very early development because I used to
enjoy the card game stuff. Like that's your
I really do, and I liked at the time, loved Hearthstone. The RNG has beaten any joy out of me, but I still from time to time get back to it. Much like to his point though, part of the issue why I don't play Hearthstone anymore is because there was a time where I got busy in life. I took like a couple weeks off. Like I didn't have time to constantly keep up with meta. You know, a new expansion pack later, I am light years behind. And it's like, I would have to spend like $100 just to get booster packs to then get the cards that are currently in the meta. And, you know, that's the one complaint about Hearthstone. So I felt it when he was talking about, you know, they're wanting to avoid kicking people out of their game by just time basis. I'm like, that speaks to me. That speaks to gamer dads around the world.
No, that's huge. That's been my one like drawback with card games is if I ever wanted to play a card game, I want it to be in person because I want the actual like card, right? Like that's a part of it. The other part of it is when it feels digital and I have to drop that kind of money to stay relevant, I lose interest real quick. Like I'll play at the very beginning. We've done this several times. Right when the game comes out, you know, we'll play. And then it's like, oh, new set of packs come out. I like the game, just not that much to spend like $100 to stay relevant. So it does sound exciting. You know, hopefully we do get a chance to check it out, but really appreciate him coming on and definitely looking forward to seeing what they release.
I do not think he's a Yu-Gi-Oh guy. He did not laugh at my Yu-Gi-Oh joke.
No. Didn't seem impressed that your collections are in Pokemon and Yu-Gi-Oh.
No. For for listeners who do play Yu-Gi-Oh, they thought my Heart of the Cards joke was hilarious. They're probably still laughing right now. He did not understand it, or just didn't find it funny, which I don't think that's the case. That doesn't make any sense. But definitely appreciate him. We'll have him on again, probably closer to release. You know what? If he's serious about getting us some early builds, I would love to test it out. So thank you again. So check that out. Google it. The Bazaar game and Tempo Storm on Twitter and everything there. So thank you for them coming on. Let's get into some e-news. Little bit to here. We have in CSGO, Cloud9 announced just a little bit ago today that they officially signed Floppy, giving them 4 players of the 5 that they need for a starting roster. Deal is for 3 years, roughly $430K.
Not a bad payday, about $12K a month for him. I'm waiting to see how they fill out this roster. You know, I know we thought there was a chance like Cooper could be the 6th man. We never really thought he'd be the starter, but a potential for 6th man there, and I still think that could potentially happen. But I'm curious to see how they round out this roster. But now looking at what they have, and we'll get into this more when it's finalized, is like kind of got to see how this all meshes together, right? Like that's how I'm kind of feeling. I don't think it's a bad roster. I gotta wait to see how this all meshes. Like they're doing a good job, it looks like, in defining roles. Now will it all come together?
Like I said the last signing, we're gonna wait till everything's official to fully have a Cloud9 roster discussion. That's it.
All right.
I'm not, because I don't want to get started.
If we start, it'll be a segment.
It will. I think a lot of this is the Henry G effect, but we'll leave it at that. IEM New York is currently going through group stages right now, so we'll talk about that a little bit down the road when we have a little bit more information, or just a little bit more results to get to. But that did start today, I think.
No, it started yesterday. So second games for EU were today, and NA also, I think.
It's been a long week. So that's going on there. IEM New York online. Overwatch League finals, they do start up tomorrow. By the time you are listening, they would have already started, though, because they are in Korea. So meaning they are super early for us here in the States. I believe tomorrow's first matchup is at 6 a.m. The second is at 8, which isn't terrible, but not
Central
prime time. Yeah, Central Time. Yep.
If you're West Coast, that's 4 and 6. That's pretty rough.
And for Friday's game, the first game is at 4 a.m. our time. So,
no chance.
I think the conspiracy theory in me says they did this so that when viewers are down, because they have been down all year, they could be like, well, we expected it.
Yeah, but at the same time, do you really want to see what that number is going to be now?
I really do. I'm going to tune in just to see the viewership number. We'll see. Also kind of messed up that they gave it to the finals to Korea the one year that they can't actually have people, but whatever. So we'll tune into that. Shanghai, though, is actually the favorite going into it. Imagine saying that 2 years ago.
Oh, was it 0-41 or something?
0-40, winless. The first inaugural year, team goes winless, and now you're a favorite going into the finals.
With
Final
the same
four.
5.
No, not the same 5. Furthest from the same 5. In Valorant, Unco, former Dallas Fuel, has announced that he is looking for a team in Valorant. I thought it was funny in his tweet where he was like, I'll explain later in a twit longer what's going on. I'm like, bro, you don't have to explain. We know what's going on. You played for a team in Overwatch, a game that is, for all intents and purposes, dying from the outside point of view, on a team that severely underperformed 3 years in a row. I don't need a twit longer. I summed it up for you.
I can see the writing on the wall.
Yeah, we all assumed. We would be more shocked. I would need a twit longer if you were staying in Overwatch. This
Explain
makes
that
sense.
decision, please.
This makes sense. Has AKM announced officially?
No, just a matter of time.
I mean, that's been like, yeah, that was the second it was announced. It was like, yeah, well, Fuel fans, enjoy AKM while you got him, because he ain't going to be there next year. Kind of surprised. AKM, I feel like, will transition over. Like, I would not be surprised if he wants to stay here, that Envy finds a way to keep him on their roster. Wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah, we've seen the like at this point we've seen the Overwatch pros that have transferred over have done well.
And yeah, I mean, he was a 76. He played that DPS player. So
between Corey and Sinatra, like, these guys are making Overwatch guys look like stars. So for League, quick Worlds update. Let me just pull it up here. I know we had majority of the group stage wrapping up. We do have Liquid 1 and 2. Got that win against G2. That's all that matters.
That win against G2. Yes. Hang your hat on that. And TSM 0 and 3. Not a good look for NA.
No.
FlyQuest 1 and 2. Not a good look for NA. I won't lie. But as I said in Discord earlier today, going into it, I said NA was going to win, and I would rather be wrong than a not obnoxiously confident American in NA teams.
Could still happen.
It could still happen. Could still happen. And in other news, non-esports related, Resident Evil, of all movie series, is getting a what's it called?
Rework, I guess
not
you
a
could say.
remaster,
It's
not a
like
remake. What's it called in the movie biz?
Bro, that's your area expertise.
They're redoing it. There's a word I am looking for. I'm forgetting it. But they are redoing the Resident Evil movies. So
yeah, and it's gonna be the origin story. Like, it's the best part of the story. Is like, how it all came to be. So I think this will be badass. I'm hoping they make it more like dark and like a little bit real than what we've seen from the Resident Evil movies. Because I think there's like a really cool Walking Dead kind of storyline that you throw out there, and I don't know, make it more like a more true movie than just an action shooter.
I loved the Resident Evil movies when I was younger. I haven't seen them in many, 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 many years, so I doubt they hold up as well as I remember. But I do also remember where it was like, I actually just read this the other day, so it's kind of funny that then they just announced this, that Capcom didn't give the movie people with the original movies, right, the rights to everything. Like, they could use the characters but not the story, which is why it was like weird.
So different.
Right. I apparently here, hopefully they have the rights to the stories now, so it can actually be a Resident Evil movie, but I'm excited. Whatever.
I think if done right, it could be badass.
Yeah.
Like,
I mean, it's zombies and Resident Evil. Like,
yeah,
it's already there. Just do it. And in other actual esports news, as I apparently just skipped half of e-news, in COD, Toronto Ultra starting roster has been announced. Methods, Cammy, Kleenex, and Bates.
Yeah, but it's like, not the scariest roster, but Cammy was one of the best players I thought throughout the year, like very consistent. Kleenex was also really good. I think they got them really cheap because they both came from amateurs previously. So they
weren't paying any of their players anyways. They were getting all their players for cheap.
And then, Methods advance, Methods is good. And, I don't think it's a heavily intimidating roster, but it's not a bad roster. We do got to remember they won the last home event series, prior to champs. So, look, kept 3 out of the 4 core there.
And in Halo news, weren't expecting that one today. Cloud9 has announced their return to Halo as they signed a full roster and coach. So in the matter of weeks, we now have Sentinel signing up a roster and Cloud9 announcing that they are back into the Halo game. Halo is back. Let's go.
TSM signed Snipe down to their Apex roster. Let's see how long that stays there for.
Yeah, it'll be a nice transition over in contract right to their Halo team.
In an early yikes of the week, Apex had an update that broke the game again. So
did it really?
Yeah, it's a shit show right now.
Yikes. You will also have other people in the esports world saying they don't really understand why these teams are signing Halo rosters. I will say, as someone who doesn't regurgitate news and call it content, because Halo was like a top franchise, top esport at one point in time, and still is a top franchise in video games. When a new one is coming out, you're going to get rosters signed. I wouldn't look too far into it. Maybe there's like some little franchise league that Microsoft or 343 is trying to set up to build the hype around it. Maybe. But I wouldn't look too far. It's Halo. Orgs want teams at launch. So if it does pick up, they're not falling behind like we do have some of the orgs running behind in ValoRANT.
And look, some of these guys are signing big names, like Sentinel's roster is going to be a fan favorite from day one. And look, they were early in ValoRANT and it's only benefited them, regardless of Riot's involvement right now or not. Sentinels is now a highly recognized name in esports, from Booga to now having the top NA team and what seems to be, they're going to have one of the best Halo teams. I think it's smart. Like you get, if you have the ability to do so, if you can be an early adopter, and find the right people, the right mix, like it would be huge for you down the road. You become a household name in that way.
Yeah. Yep. So I think it's a smart pickup by Cloud9 and Sentinels to get back into it. And look, we've seen it. I mean, this is such a low risk thing. If it doesn't work out, you move on. Like they're
not
always
signing 4-year, $1.5 million deals each.
Nothing. So it's fine. It's fine. It's exciting. I'm ready for it. Gets my Halo juices flowing, even though there's not actually any type of release date. So I don't know what they're going to be playing. Maybe Halo 5 for now. I don't know. Master Chief Collection. Who knows? Hopefully they have them on retainer or something. But there you have it. There is some e-news for you. Thank you so much for listening. That is episode 278. It's done. It's in the books. Whether or not you listen to the whole thing or the whole skipped around, love you all the same. Thank you to Reynad and Tempo Storm for coming on the show, giving us a little insight news on the Bazaar. Check them out on Twitter. Pre-order the game. You get access to early access whenever that may be. I'll definitely be there. I already have it. I've had it purchased for 2 years. It's just sitting there waiting to give me access. So I'll be there day one for sure. We will be back Sunday night to record Monday's episode, so be sure to tune in live on YouTube or Twitch. Follow us on Twitter at The Center Ring. We will have Yikes of the Week. Spoiler alert, already have some Yikes locked and loaded. So it's already been one of those weeks. But that will be Sunday night again for Monday's episode. Hit us up in Discord if you want to play some ValoRANT. We're finishing up Act 2, going to grind some Act 3, and get that going as well. At the Center Ring one more time. Again, love you, and we'll see you next time.